Alright guys, so we're going to be doing more of that, where you post an image and then someone has to go ahead and write a story based around that image. We've got 2 stories for you today. They're both really good. I really enjoyed both of them, and I hope you guys enjoy them too, but let's just get into this one.
Raptor 6 to all units. Ice Pick Company has just confirmed civvies in the strike zone. We're still going in, but stick to smart munitions and watch your fire. A hurricane of curt acknowledgements filled the comms for a moment. James could tell
why do I always end up on these?
James. James could tell they wanted to complain about underkill, but no one wanted to be guilty of blue on blue either. We're on final approach. Stick to terrain following. There's heavy AAA covering the enemy advance on this side. Raptor 1, you're to prioritise AAA. The rest of you are to prioritise ground vehicles. Ice Pick can handle infantry. Raptor 6, out. The leading squadron of 8 squat Wildcat fighter bombers seemed to sink even lower into the skyscrapers at that. Just trying to bypass laser-based AAA was bad enough. Engaging it directly amounted to joisting a tank with a bomb and a stick. And Lieutenant Charlie Webb, Raptor 1's CO and lead Wildcat, felt his titanium nanotube skin/hull to chill a little more, even though he knew he wasn't in biomorph body and shouldn't be feeling an actual emotion. Brain uploading had been a mature technology long before the Earth evacuation, but no way had been found to cut out emotions without fraying and fragmenting the mind, and residues of flight or fight responses kicked around in the back of his mind as he acknowledged an almost suicidal order. But Charles was a veteran. Raptor 1 was nothing but fighter bomber veterans, and they all knew the score. Containing the enemy within New Yorkshire took top priority, and the northbound superhighway, Ice Pick Company's side of the encirclement, was the enemy's main line of advance. Either they stopped them here, or the enemy would run roughshod through the encirclement rear, and that could not be allowed to happen. And Ice Pick was in a bad way now, and sufficient artillery and artillery wasn't going to arrive in time. Raptor Air Company was the only fire support available, and they needed that AAA clear out. Webb chewed on the problem for a good few seconds, and a few hundred metres of ruined city, before he had his answer. At his terse, an HUD assisted orders the 8 Wildcats spread out in a line abreast and dropped down as they cleared the skyline, hovering in place just over the water of the channel. 3 of them released their recon drones as they did, and 9 tiny delta wings unfurled and streaked just over the battered and cratered skyscrapers on the other side. Raptor 1 seemed to quiver in place over the agitated water as they waited, the drones highlighting enemies, vehicles and passing the data to the rest of the formation. Then one drone vanished in a small firecracker fireball, then another. But the 3rd drone fingered their killer seconds before another AA laser smotted from the sky. Other drones swooped around in dizzying evasive manoeuvres, crossing and crisscrossing and ducking behind buildings. It didn't save them, but by the time the last drone had fallen from the sky without a right wing, every detectable enemy vehicle had been ID'd by type and last known position, including the AAA. Webb looked over his TAC map, satisfied he'd fingered the guns, and then gave his orders. The 8 Wildcats surged up and forward over the channel, splitting up into 2 aircraft wings and streaking just over the rooftops towards the last known positions of the AAA vehicles. As they did, they loosed 3 missiles each, which fanned out and spread ahead of them on tongues of orange flame. Charles and his wingmate frantically scanned the streets and debris just ahead and under them. If they missed with a missile, they were only going to have one shot with a nose cannon, and that's if they were lucky and spotted the AAA first. This was going to be dicey. But they didn't spot any active AAA on their dash from one end of the island to the other. They did spot and confirm the wreckage. In the back of Charles' mind seemed to lean back and exhale as he spun the Wildcat around on its VTOL thrusters and raced back to the channel behind another wing. They'd made it halfway back when a frantic message came in over the squadron comms. Raptor 1, this is Raptor 1 Gamma. We've been locked up by long-range AAA. The message was composed, sent, received, and running through Charles' mind within a second of the first scanning radar pulse being detected. And an icicle seemed to form in the back of his mind as he glanced out his rear sensor bundles. Raptor 1 Gamma and her wingmates, Echo, was way in the rear over the channel and burning straight back on full afterburner. They had just passed back over the island when 2 streaks of propellant rose straight out of the landscape beyond and tilted over after them. Shit! Gamma! Echo! Drop down below the skyline and try to lose them. The rest of you, turn around and hold in place once you get to the other side of the channel. Maybe we can indirect those missiles. Now move it! Acknowledgements flooded the comms for a brief moment. Then silence, as everyone focused on pouring on the speed. Gamma and Echo dived down the first street they could and moved frantically between the buildings. The missiles seemed to waver back and forth, shaking over the buildings as they chased after the two Wildcats, closing slowly and steadily, and Charles wondered why they were so slow for AAA missiles as streets gave way to water below them. The 6 Wildcats fanned in close behind him, spreading out in a line abreast and holding in place as they reached the opposite shore, and Charles hooked up to the battalion comms. Icepick, where the hell is your AAA? It's all dead, mate. First thing to go. A faint Scottish burr seemed to colour Icepick's tone. Why? Charles began to compose a scathing reply. Then Gamma and Echo sped out from the skyline into open water just as the first missile caught up with them. The white fireball of an Acer warhead bottled out the light of the local star for a few seconds, seeming to balloon outward as it cooled the red, and static swamped the comms as half the molten wreckage of Gamma's Wildcat was spat out like a grapeseed from hell's mouth. Charles saw Gamma's ejection datapole leap out onto twin jets of flame. Then the second missile lanced through the rapidly cooling remnants of the fireball as the shockwave rolled over and through Raptor 1. The 6 Wildcats recovered quickly and opened fire with their nose cannons on the missile without prompting. Oh, Icepick's self-reproaching tone carried through the remnants of the static, even as his remaining units opened fire from the bridge. The missile sped for Raptor 1. Twitching back and forth as KK cannon fire sawed it through the storm of ECM it was suddenly throwing up. Charles pulled his aircraft up and back, trying to back into the city, and the rest of his squadron followed his lead as the missiles closed in, and vanished. Not in pure white sunburst, but in the blue and white fireball of igniting metastable helium propellant, as an infrared laser lanced it in its midsection. The nose laser turret of the Thunderbolt interceptor responsible vented some excess coolant in a white spray as the life, almost knife-like aircraft settled in a hover above Raptor 1, followed by the rest of its 6 aircraft squadron. Raptor 1, this is Raptor 6. We just confirmed your assessment of the scan data from your strike. Excellent job. Get back to the new Pacific airport and rearm. We need you back out there ASAP. Raptor 2, there's probably more launchers nearby, so you're on indirection duty. The rest of you continue as planned. Let's wipe these bastards off our city. The ice in the back of Charles's mind melted as he realised he wasn't going to die this sortie. Raptor 1 here. Need to recover one pilot first. And he slid back over the water on his VTOL thrusters, towards and under the datapod, drifting down on its parachute. Understood. Grab it and go. We should have some Wildcats at New Pacific. More Wildcats. And a quartet of heavy-set Orca bombers thundered overhead as Charles extended a manipulator arm and grabbed Gamma's datapod by the shit lines. You okay there? Raptor 1 Gamma? He sent over the data lines tucked into the lines. A pause, long by in Infomorph standards. Then, all good, if you don't count the bird. Satisfied, he spun around and sped off after a squadron just over the rifttops, as the island broiled with explosions behind him. Which was when he remembered something. Gamma and Echo had been added to his squadron as replacements after his last sortie, and he hadn't had time to ask their names. Raptor 1 Gamma, can I ask you your name? A little late for it now, isn't it? She seemed to pause between sentences again, and Charles emoted it and winced as he remembered that ejection datapods had excellent memory, but relatively poor processing power. The price of having to fit an entire person's memories into a hardened shell the size of a baseline's torso. It's Jane McCoy. So I take it your family do the pre-evacuation serial videos, then? Charles replied as he earmarked some onboard CPU for Gamma's Jane McCoy's use, and Jane emoted her gratitude for the extra processing power. So who was Echo then? Another pause. Charles was absolutely sure it wasn't the processing bottleneck this time. He was Salvador McCoy, my husband. Oh, that was why. They flew the rest of the way, over the battered and war-torn city, and between them there was silence and ghost.
Very good. I really enjoyed this one. Mm-hmm. You know what this one gives me hope for? This one's pure anime to me. But it's anime done good.
Well. Yeah.
I really, the way I'm imagining this, it is pure anime, but done incredibly well. Instead of like mecha suits, it's fighter pilots.
Yeah.
And honestly, I would love to play like a fighter pilot style game. I think it would be so much fun. But it would be very hard to actually play a game like that that's not a video game.
Yeah.
But I don't know, I thought this one was really cool. I hope you guys enjoyed this one, but let's just get into the next one, will we?
And now, the models of our website, brought to you by neckbeardia.co.uk. Get y'all some of these titties.
Dwarf titties, orc titties, cat titties, fat titties, the gases and wastes a bit. Vampires and goblins and all the buff champions and even hentai, yeah that too. Dragons, manticores, ogres and gnomes and bugbearers and even more to go still. Undead and demons and then our friend Pally and definitely not 40k. Wood elves, dark elves and lizards and Megan the Slither and James to look cool as he stands. Beholders and kobolds and tyrants and only in a donkey with a frying pan. If you don't want no models, then no need to bother. We now have subclasses and teas. Also, Guardbros Book, go have a look. Check out the link to Ko-fi. Thank you for watching our videos and giving our channel a hand. But this is the end, our viewers and friends, so let's get back to the video, man. I fucking hate myself.
Biomass 2236017 has acquired a new template. Please advise. Over. Please state the acquisition lead field officer. Harding. John Harding. Wait, am I only supposed to say my last? Really need to change that, damn it. Biomass 2236017 has acquired test object 668399. Response is better than previously anticipated, much more adaptable than previously. Acquisition logged. Engage Biomass 2236017. Normal procedures only. Confirmed. I switched channels. Back to my trip. Normal engagement procedures, everyone. Light the meat pile up. Actions of affirmation followed. Jenkins, take point. I'm finding a viewpoint in setting up drones. Jenkins nodded and switched comms channels. Everyone followed his lead off in the direction of Biomass 2236017. I set off to find a place high up, but not before activating Bonnie and Clyde. Androids numbers B7682 and C3924, respectively. I set them to wide arc until they get set up and then they can head off. A couple of live vids from each Android players in the bottom right of my vision, accessible by focusing on each feed with at least one eye. In 14 years of running in the grid, still haven't managed individual control of my right eye. Clyde was going right, while Bonnie left. Jenkins and the crew about to engage Biomass 22, which was busy converting what's left of test object 668399 into usable materials. Jenkins better engage soon. It's going to start walking and screaming in about 28 seconds. Clyde gave a message of objective completion as I set up shop on top of the two crushed towers with easy survey of the nearby area, including all Biomass 22, all of which had finally reached the tank, or what's left of it. I mouse spit down the centre of the barrel, segmented and gurgling at the moment. Sound projecting organs will most likely be fully developed in 7 seconds. Bonnie gave a similar message of objective completion as I spoke to the team. Set audio input to 3, everyone. It's about to get a menagerie of eardrum-piercing screeches and wheels manifest at that moment. Jenkins and the troops opened fire. I set Clyde to forward until opposition, and Bonnie to the same. Fire from the troops was doing little to Biomass 22, as the acquisition of tank metal armour in combination with previously acquired materials seemed to be much more effective than anticipated. Set weapons to hollow point fire, as well as armour-piercing rounds. What you've got won't do much but make it upset. Biomass 22 has finished absorption of test object 668399 and have begun stage 2 of biomass progression, the mobile stage. Metal shitness legs sprawled out from an armoured, wet, tentacle-covered mass, dragging it forward towards those that dared fire upon it. I popped the drone sink off of my back and set it onto the surface in front of me, letting the machine set up. 19 seconds. Clyde fired the minigun attached to his chassis to the left of Biomass 22, bullets ripping across flesh and pinging off metal. A crack, and then a softball-sized burnt-out hole straight through the centre of Biomass 22 marked the arrival of Bonnie. Drone sync setup complete, stated my HUD. I blinked the notification away as I placed my gauntlets onto the inputs on either side of the system. 3 metal rods tipped in a sync input system shot into my forearms, and a whole new set of senses lit up my eyes. 2 drones were launched from the drone sink, blades whizzing into action, cameras flickering on, scanners light up. They flew into position around the biomass, giving me various readings on biomass 2-2, which was now up and walking on variously shaped appendages, mostly on top of the troops. It wouldn't be much longer now. Clyde and Bonnie were tearing into it, and biomass was clearly unhappy. With a screech that could be heard for miles, it swung its legs right and left, crushing anything nearby that even resembles an outfitted trooper. "Boss, how much longer until we're ready for the drop?" Jenkins asked. "Give me 71 more seconds, Jenkins. Rip it to pieces. You know what the drill is." "Yes, sir. Keep it up, folks. Not much longer." And it all went to shit when Curly went and ran. He turned, and Biomass 2-2 saw the opening immediately. With one stretch of the cellular mass, a great deal of weight was brought down on Curly, and Biomass 2-2 acquired it heartily, human hair sprouting all over Biomass 2-2 as it absorbed Curly. Heron tossed a grenade into one of the screeching mouths at its back, which caused a great deal of sudden inflation and an expulsion of gas on Biomass 2-2's part, and then Heron was impaled on a shitness leg, slowly being turned into a sack of meat attached to the leg. Human shins and feet appeared over one side of Biomass 2-2. Clyde's fire was doing less and less, Biomass's 2-2 shell becoming more resistant to such methods, and Bonnie's fire was becoming redundant, Biomass's 2-2's regeneration increasing exponentially. Stage 3 of biomass progression imminent. Lead Field Officer, Harding, John Harding. Wait, am I only supposed to say my last? I'm aware, jackass. Jenkins, get your team under control or we're all burnouts. Got it? Yes sir, I'll... Squelch. Jenkins screamed into the mic as one of Biomass's 2-2's tentacles grabbed him up and crushed him into its central mass. Ah shit! The various mouths on the body of Biomass 2-2 began to produce exponential amounts of human molars, most of them immediately falling out onto the ground. I disengaged from the drone sink, as the drones found their homes in the system storage unit. I popped the drone sink into my back. Something needed to be done, and quickly. I set Clyde and Bonnie to engage until deactivation, and I took off at a sprint towards Biomass 2-2, which was now turned towards Clyde. A wide, pulsing mass balanced precautiously on spindly, segmented legs, dragging underneath and behind it a web of tentacles pulsating meat. Each member of each troop on the grid is outfitted with one standard issue set of plasteel plated semi-autonomous armour, one standard issue grav rifle and ammunition, one standard issue real pistol and ammunition, guys I'm getting through this, 3 vitals of military grade medical foam, 3 grenades of varying types, and enough MREs to last any one soldier long enough to reach a grid outpost. This loadout may only be changed if the unit in question is an officer and has shown skill in one area or another. The most important of these is the Mobile Rail Drop Beacon, or MRB. Each biomass within the grid must be constantly upkept and studied so that it may better humanity, so that the mistakes of the circumstances that created the biomasses will not be made again. Before reaching stage 3 of biomass progression, it must be regressed back to stage 1. Less terrible consequences ensue. I grabbed the MRB off my hip, it hissing in my hand as the cylindrical device popped open on one end, a long needle-like protrusion extending outward. I reached the same level as Biomass 2-2, just as Clyde's feed displayed an error feed disconnect message. Bonnie was mostly crushed under an amorphous blob, slowly being absorbed into part of Biomass's 2-2's body. Eyes ripped open across the side of Biomass's 2-2 in my direction. They were small and black, and reflected like that of insects, yet they shone more intelligent than any insect could hope to display. I turned audio input down to 1 as I unhooked my real pistol from my hip, and I still heard the shrill screech of 20 mouths screaming in anger in my direction. What I had not noticed before was the Biomass 2-2 had produced a bone-like tube of itself, and seemed to be pointing it in my direction. What worried me more was that it resembled a barrel of a tank. My worries were solidified when a mass of bone shattered into the ground beside me. I ran toward Biomass 2-2, bone shards scattering everywhere, some digging into my armour and scraping across my helmet. I felt one fling itself into a weak armoured joint piece, and my HUD confirmed my suspicions of blood loss in my hip. Adrenaline shots were injected into my spine as I powered towards the rippling mass before me. The bone cannon seemed fairly slow to reload, since I wasn't covered in more silvers of calcium yet, but I wasn't going to stop and wait. I vaulted debris and dropped onto my face as a shitness leg swept my feet from out underneath me. If not for my armour, my legs would have been broken into many, many pieces. Eyes blinked in and out of existence across Biomass 22's shell, legs bending and breaking and reforming as they angrily dug into the ground around me. Biomass 22 was nearly on top of me now. I rolled out of the way of a vomited organ that looked like lungs covered in teeth, which was quickly sucked back inside by gaping mouth that soon disappeared into another piece of thick shell, and got back on my feet, firing rounds into the flesh of the beast all the while. It wouldn't do much, but it sure as hell annoyed it. Biomass 22 had enough and lunged its full weight towards me, splaying legs and tentacles everywhere in hopes of catching me. I felt the actuators rumble as I crouched down and then jumped, the flight through the air not nearly as graceful as I'd hoped, as a clawed tentacle scraped down across my armour, but thankfully couldn't penetrate it. I threw the MRB down as I spun around through the air, or at least what I hoped was down. I landed in a pile of rubble ungracefully, arm out of socket and blood beginning to leak out of my armour from the bone injury. Biomass 22 wriggled angrily, skin looking like a living shagrug as it stood again, tentacles whipping around in the air. But I could see the MRB stuck in a quivering hump on the back of Biomass's 22. I stood, using the rubble around me as support, knowing I couldn't stop for anything, unless I wanted to be burnt out. Those that survived the earlier failure of a fight with Biomass 22 had left and regripped, but that was at the back of my mind. I'd seen tripmates die before. It didn't matter now. The adrenaline was wearing off, and I was slowing down, despite my best efforts. I dodged in and out of rubble, keeping to low places, but Biomass 22 had none of it. It crawled straight through the building I tried to put between us, but I was down and under a nearby tree that had overgrown a car. Not that it would stop Biomass 22, but it shielded me from the near-orbital explosion that fired on the beacon well enough. Biomass 2236017 regressed to Stage 1. Please report to the nearest grid outpost. Lead Field Officer, Harding. John Harding. Wait, am I only supposed to say my last...
I don't know about you guys, but I feel like that one is Guardsmen versus Tyranids.
Yeah, that's
that's essentially what I feel like.
Yeah.
It feels like, because, you know, the problem is, it feels like they are well equipped, but they're not well equipped at the same time.
Yeah.
It feels like these guys have just been...
They're flinging shit and hoping something sticks.
Like, you know, it's instead of like, okay, you know what, do you want to just set the whole thing on fire? Do you want to just dump it into a big bucket of acid? You know,
yeah.
It feels like everything that they're doing is kind of hopeless, you know?
Yeah.
And it does give me Guardsman vibes just from that level of helplessness.
Yeah.
So I hope you guys enjoyed that one. I thought they were both actually
I thought they were very good.
Really good.
Very well written.
Especially since they're kind of like, the whole point of these are supposed to be like, you see an image, let's just like something real quick. You know what I mean? It's more of like a think like a quick puzzle, or what would be the right word? It's DM cleaning maybe.
Yeah.
It's like, you know, coming up with shit on the fly and being able to make it work. And I really enjoy these ones. I think they're really cool. I would really love to do some form of submissions of sorts. I'd like to do something like that, so definitely check out all the social media links below. I don't know how I'm going to go about doing it, but
we'll let you know.
We'll find out. We'll let you guys find out.
But as always, guys, check out the links down below to the models and subclasses. They really help us out a lot. And hit subscribe, hit the notification bell so you get notified every time we post a video. And we'll see you in the next one. Bye!